Yo, what's going on, guys? This is D Tacos, and this is the Daily Taco for January 2nd, 2021. We have a special one. First off, Happy New Year to everybody. Secondly, I am interviewing my friend and state senator of New York, Andrew Gounardes. He represents me, actually, in the state senate, the 22nd district. Talk about a lot of stuff. I'm good friends with him. We went to high school together, and then our paths splintered. He went the smart way, I went the dumb way. So here we are. He's a good egg. Talk about a bunch of stuff. We talk about some local New York stuff. We talk COVID. We talk AOC. We talk a bunch of stuff. A lot of national stuff too. Andrew's great to talk to. He's extremely intelligent, and he's one of the good guys, for lack of a better word. You know what I mean? Like, you think about politicians, you get that icky feeling. Not Andrew. He's a good dude, good egg. So check it out. New York State Senator Andrew Gounardes. Oh, I forget. I need you to do me a favor. Can you do me a favor? Please? I need you to like, subscribe, rate 5 stars if you listen to the audio on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get the audio from. If you're watching on YouTube, give it a like. I know I'm not the best looking. I'm not the worst looking, but I'm not the best looking. Let's be honest. So just do what you can to help support the show. I really appreciate the people that have been supporting the show so far. Let's keep rocking. Let's keep growing. And I hope to get more conversations like the one I just had with Andrew, and like the one I had before with Maria. I think she's gonna come back on. We shot the shit pretty well, so it was a lot of fun. That's about it. Happy New Year. God bless America. And here's New York State Senator Andrew Gounardes. Enjoy.
Hey,
What's up? You hear me good?
yeah, I hear you great.
I got you good too. What's going on?
Everything's good. You?
Not bad. Not bad. Just hanging in, basically.
Yeah.
Waiting to get stuck with the vaccine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. What are you? You're not on a list right now.
No.
Uh,
I'm
no.
like, I guess I'm thought of as healthy.
Yeah. Same with us.
You don't get like you don't jump the line?
They haven't told us anything, so I'm not expecting it.
Was it like done? The federal people were done because it was just like for a photo op?
It could be. Like, that helps convey confidence in the vaccine, and gets more people to want to do it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But they haven't told us anything here locally.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they're stumbling out of the gate with the vaccine. So
Yeah.
it doesn't look awesome.
Right. I know. Big concern.
I'm gonna do like a like I'm gonna do something before this recording. So like I don't have to be like, oh yeah, it's Andrew Gounardes. I'm gonna like explain everything and stuff. We'll just jump into it.
Great. Good. So you have this set up in your house?
Yeah.
Nice.
In my bedroom. My bed's like right across from here. And I have this huge table here, just sitting here like with this setup. I had it before too. I broke it down.
Yeah.
And I just reset it up because my friend wanted to get into it, so we just started doing it.
That's
my
cool.
friend does sports podcasts. I don't really do sports podcasts. I do like an angry progressive podcast. You know what I'm saying? Because I sound like I should be a Trump supporter, but I'm not, like, at all. It's the last thing that I'll ever be. So when I post stupid stuff like making fun of Trump or whatever, Republicans more, I always wait to get some kind of heat from people that are like Trump supporters. But what I usually get is just people agreeing with me and sending me messages like, oh, I wish I could say this. I'm like, what are you so scared of? Like, what are they going to do to you?
Yeah. Right, exactly. It's amazing. Like, there are people who are like, closet Trump supporters who are afraid to say they are.
Right.
And then there are people who like are closet, non-Trump supporters who are afraid to say it's like so crazy to me.
Yeah, it's weird.
You have people who like are flying Trump flags from their house, or like flying like Biden Harris flags from their house, and they have no shame. It's so weird how people, like, how they view how other people perceive them.
Right.
It's odd.
You worked with Biden, right? I remember like a while ago you posted something about Biden.
Yeah, so I back in 2006, he came, and I was working on a Senate campaign in New Jersey. He came to campaign with us for the day, and my job was to drive him around. So I spent like 15 hours in the car with him all day. was like
Is he a
me
dick?
and him in the front seat next to me.
Oh wow.
It was awesome. Yeah, like, really cool day.
Was he a
Really
nice
cool
guy?
guy.
All right,
Awesome.
that's good.
Yeah, super nice.
Because it would have been brutal if he was just an asshole.
Yeah, he was super nice.
Cool.
Asked me about my family. What I was 21 years old. What did I want to do with my life? This, that. It's like he was trying to take me out on a date or something. He was trying to get to know me. It was really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That must have put some kind of like impression on you.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the night, so I dropped him off at the Metro Park train station in Edison. He took his cufflinks off of his shirt and he gave them to me.
Oh no shit! Wow.
They actually had his name on them, so that was pretty cool.
So he's not the head of a pedophile cabal.
I mean, we didn't make any
As far as you know.
We didn't stop at any pizzerias, to go into the basement or anything. So as far as I know,
That's so funny.
he's above board.
He does seem like actually a decent human being. Maybe a little bit old for this right now, but compared to Trump, it's like I used to tell people, and I'll make the joke with you, like I would show people like an inanimate object and be like, this would be better than Donald Trump still being president. And people would freak out, obviously, on me and stuff but it's the truth. Like he's a complete liability. He was a complete liability. What do you think about all these senators? Like you saw Cruz recently, he's coming out saying that like on the day that they certify.
Yeah. You know what? I have so many thoughts. On the one hand, it's like, these are really smart people who went to like some of the best, universities and law schools in the country.
Yeah.
And they know better. Like it's terrifying to me and a hugely disappointed that they know better, right? It's like, it's one thing if like you could argue, make the case, all right, you have your opinion, but these are people who like know exactly what they're doing, and what they are doing is self-destructive. And I just don't understand that. And that scares the crap out of me.
It's kind of wild, right? Because you read back like on dictators and stuff like that, people who like take over countries and stuff. You're like, that'll never happen here. It can never happen here. And like, if there weren't like better, if judges weren't, more like judges, appointed Trump judges are knocking down dismissing lawsuits that are frivolous, it's not like we're not that many steps away from something like that happening, which is wild to me. It's crazy. I never would have thought it would have happened. And a guy like Ted Cruz, like he's a lawyer. You hear him in like in those like hearings and stuff and like congressional hearings. He's extremely sharp. He's not like a dud. And you could just tell like it's disingenuous. It's a money grab basically, like for stir up some supporters to send the money.
It's exactly right. It's exactly right. That's what makes it scary. Like they are so smart that this is calculated.
Right.
Like this is calculated, which is not a good place for us to be. So I saw it today. It was like 7 senators now, or 12 senators said that they're gonna.
Yeah, I read something, a quarter of the Republican senators. So there's 52, so like probably 12.
12, yeah. Which
is not an insignificant amount.
Exactly.
And it's some heavy hitters. Like Cruz is a national name. What's the other guy? That guy, Ron Johnson, who's a...
Ron Johnson from Wisconsin? Yeah, terrible. Josh Hawley, who, again, smart guy. He's like only a couple years older than us.
So interesting. That guy, he was on the floor with Bernie yesterday talking about $2,000 direct payments.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing? You're just trying to get like headlines? Like, what are you trying to do?
It's like he's jumping from wave to wave to wave to try to ride it to something.
It's kind of, I mean, that's obviously deliberate too, right? Because he's doing the $2,000 payments. Like he's all for it. He's actually at the Senate. Like, Cruz wasn't at the Senate. He was quail hunting.
Yeah.
So, that guy Hawley, you could tell he's for lack of a better word, and I don't want to curse too much, but he's full of shit.
Totally.
It's like brutal to see too, because there's 100 senators in the whole country. Like, it's a super important position. Yeah, it's just scary.
Yeah.
Did you want Biden early on, primary wise?
I wasn't thrilled with any one person all the way. Yeah. I like Biden a lot, just because I think of the nostalgia for, the personal contact I had with him, and I thought he was a really good vice president. He's been really good for Greeks on a lot of Greek issues. So like that part of me was like, all right, we got,
someone's there for us. Yeah.
I liked Warren a bit. I liked a lot of what she was saying. So like I was a little bit all over the place. I like Buttigieg's like freshness and like, young energy. Because again, he's like 3 or 4 years older than us, right? So
Yeah.
it's like that's pretty exciting to see someone our age, succeeding that well, even if you don't agree with everything he says. So I think my default, because I was all over the place, was just Biden.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was just the safest bet. Bernie, just Bernie's out.
You know what,
For you?
Bernie, I like Bernie. I like some of what he's saying, but I think the stuff I liked about Bernie, Warren was also doing this or saying the same things. And like Bernie, I think was always looking for the revolution. And
Sure.
I'm not a revolutionary guy. Like I think we need like big changes, but not like overthrow, burn the place down type of changes.
I'm kind of with you. I don't know. I mean, like, you could probably fix a lot of this shit that's wrong with government with like campaign financing. Would probably stop a lot of the garbage.
Yep.
And like, hey man, just look at what Canada or Germany or UK does and give us that healthcare system. Whatever they do, just copy it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because people shouldn't be going bankrupt because they got cancer. You know what I mean? Like, that's wild to me in America that's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm with you on that. Besides like throwing it out, the baby with the bathwater. I get it. I'm with you. But Medicare for all or whatever kind of like actually affordable healthcare, I'm all for it. I'm not going to. And you know that line everybody says when you talk to them about like actually affordable or free healthcare, they say, "Oh yeah, but everyone comes here for healthcare." Like, that's BS too.
Right.
Rand Paul, who's like, king libertarian, went to Canada for a hernia operation, like a relatively routine operation, right? That should be able to be done here. He went to Canada because the best guy was in Canada. Like, so there's talking points on both sides. It's interesting to like that debate. I don't get it. I don't get how you're a representative of a county or a district or a state and you're against giving people affordable healthcare or actually like free healthcare or whatever, Medicare for all, where you can get a Medicare, like a supplemental plan on top of it to get extra, you know what I mean? Like, there's hybrids.
Yeah. There was a great book that I read a couple of years ago called American Sickness. And it was all about the business of healthcare. And that's really what it is. Like, it's all about, it's a business.
Right.
All of it. And so when you understand it in that lens, then all of this stuff makes sense because it's always about profit and it's always about the bottom line.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that matters. Nothing else matters.
Like, I'm not an anti-capitalist, right? Like, I've owned businesses and stuff. I like having money compared to not having money. And, but this thing where like we've commoditized people's health, it's it's screwed up. It's like, it's mind boggling if you sit down and think about it.
Yep. Exactly. People have no idea because it's so complicated. It's intentionally complicated. So this way people have no idea like how to decipher it or figure it out. And then they just play us for suckers.
Right.
Really it's awful. It's awful.
Yeah. It's scary just how many people actively vote for people who work against their interests and like basic interests. I'm not saying like, forget like how small businesses get screwed over and stuff like, I'm talking just regular individualistic, affordable or free healthcare, which to me should be a right. I think, we have a right to have 12 aircraft carriers, right? Let's not 40% of personal bankruptcies are medical bills. It's crazy. It makes no sense.
Exactly. You gotta check that book out. It'll blow your mind.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, American.
It's gonna get me angry.
It got me angry too. Like, they were like, hospitals next door to each other would charge like wildly different prices for the same exact treatment just because they could. Like, there is no supply demand curve when it comes to healthcare. It's all like the provider sets the rate and that's it.
Yeah.
And there's no talk about like a capitalist society. There is zero capitalism in the healthcare system, except for the fact that it's all about making money.
Right.
Because the basic laws of economics just don't apply.
Right. Yeah. There's no market.
No, you're right.
There's no competition really. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that is interesting. I mean, same thing. You can draw a parallel to student loans too. Like what's happened with student loans, kind of, because they don't really have a market. It's just like, it's guaranteed, so let's just raise the price until
the prices. That's right.
They're at our doorsteps with pitchforks, basically.
Exactly right.
Right.
Exactly right. Colleges don't care. They got paid day one.
Yeah. Wow, what a good business to be in.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, listen, we're lucky because we have city schools too. Like, so it's relatively affordable compared to like private or even state colleges are, 4 times more expensive than city schools.
Yeah. I mean, I did both. I went to CUNY and then I went to a private law school, and like the law school stuff is gonna, My grandkids will probably be paying off my law school loans just because
You
it's
got
so
loans, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you got it. How else you got to do it? You know.
Well, listen, I know rich kids who went to law school and school, and like, and they don't have loans, luckily, and stuff, which is interesting, right? Like, I know a friend of mine, he went to a private college and then a private law school, top 10 law school, $60,000 a year it cost. He would have been in the hole like close to 300,000, and he got out of law school and got offered like a $40,000 starting pay. Like, how are you paying your law school? How are you paying your loans back?
No way.
And you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
Like, you did the right thing, right? Become a doctor or a lawyer. Like, everybody remembers that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's scary what goes on. Like, you try and like set you on a back foot from the get-go.
Yeah, exactly. And then, when you look at like repaying student loans, if you have a federal student loan, let's say for graduate school, the federal government sets the interest rate. And, like, for example, they just reset the rate maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Like my law school loans, which are federally backed, I'm paying like 8.5% interest on that.
Oh, wow. It's not even.
And you can't even, if you refinance it, you're not eligible for any forgiveness, any income-based repayments. They won't so you're screwed. Like, if you want to try to lower your payments based on how much you make, you can't refinance that loan if it's a federal loan.
Yeah, that's nuts to me. Yeah.
So I'm paying almost 9% in interest to carry a loan. It's criminal.
Yeah,
it's
totally brutal. 9%.
This is the federal government doing it. Our own government setting that rate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nuts. It's crazy. Oh my God.
All business.
I know. And like, we put such an onus on education, right? Like, you need to go to college, you need to get a degree and stuff like that. And meanwhile, you're out of college and you're down $200,000 or $150,000, whatever it costs.
You're in the hole, right?
Like, you could do better. I mean, this sounds like super capitalist, but you'd do better if you just got lent that money and like used it for investments or something.
Yeah.
That's like super libertarian, anarchist, capitalist guy, but it just
wasn't that was Peter Thiel's big thing a couple of years ago. Peter Thiel's like cancel college and give everyone money to go start a business or something like that.
I don't really agree on a lot Peter Thiel has to say, but that does make sense, like unless you're going for something specific. You want to be a doctor, pharmacist, even lawyer, even though like, it's not easy to make a ton of money as a lawyer. People think they come out of law school and they're making $100,000+ a year. It's not, unless you're top 5 in your class, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
Even still, you got to bill like 60 hours a week. Like you have a quota.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about election night for you, because you kind of went through what Biden went through, right? Like, at the end of the night, you were down, and New York City Board of Elections, I don't know what they do. Like, they're sleeping at the wheel, basically, because it took, like, how long did it take for you guys to count the votes, for you specifically?
My race they didn't start counting for a week. And then after they started counting, 2 weeks. And after they started counting, they were done in 3 days. So it took I found out 2 weeks and a day after the election.
Wow. Yeah, that's a long time. I mean, they can't.
A long time.
Because I remember checking the New York City website, and it was just the same number for weeks. And I remember you tweeting saying like, hey, we need help counting the votes. And I'm like, do they not have this like figured out? Like, it's crazy to me. I know they knew that about the presidential was definitely going Biden. We know that, but still, like, they're down ticket races that need, and this district, the 22nd district, super razor thin usually.
That's exactly, part of it is, I'll give the Board of Elections some credit, because part of it is, the laws that we have in place right now didn't allow them to start counting any sooner. Number one, so they had to wait a minimum of 1 week before they could start counting.
Oh, wow, okay.
And then they made a decision to start counting all of the non-contested races first, just to get them out of the way, since there weren't as many ballots there. And then they would have gotten to ours. Could they have done ours first? Sure. I mean, at that point, it's like, I'm not going to fault them for that.
Right.
But they could not start counting until a week after. So we had to wait.
Holy smokes.
You can request an absentee ballot and still show up in person on election day. So they have to wait 7 days to see two things. Number one, if any ballots were dropped in the mail on election day, they give them 7 days to arrive.
Okay.
And B, they have to cross-reference the people who requested an absentee ballot, returned an absentee ballot, and then also voted in person. So like maybe you got an absentee ballot and then you sent it back, but then you changed your mind, you wanted to go vote in person. You're allowed to do that in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to like cross-reference all of those things. So
I guess
it takes a couple of days to do that.
Yeah, I guess big picture, it's probably a good thing making it as easy as possible for people to vote and stuff like that. I wish like mail-in ballots were like the norm, and early drop-off ballots were like the norm. We're doing it because of COVID. I mean, that's
We're
why
working on that. We're working on that.
Yeah.
It takes so this year for the first time, so the state constitution actually defines the reasons why you can ask for an absentee ballot, and there's only 4 reasons. One of them is sickness.
Okay.
So the governor signed an executive order, and we passed a law that codified it, saying that your concern of COVID would qualify as a sickness. Before this all started, we were actually in the process of changing the constitution in the state to allow for anyone to ask for an absentee ballot at any time without needing a specific reason. But to change the constitution in New York takes a minimum of 3 years. So you have to pass, in order to change the constitution, you can do 2 things. You can either have a state constitutional amendment convention, which is a rarity. It hasn't happened since the 1960s. Or you can have the legislature pass an amendment, and then with 2 years later, the next legislature, so like the next seating of the legislature, has to pass the same amendment, word for word, and then it has to go for a public referendum. So
holy smokes, you're right.
So we passed the first passage of the no fault absentee amendment last legislative session. We are going to pass the next one this legislative session, hopefully the next couple of weeks, and then the entire state would vote on it this coming November.
Okay.
And then moving forward, we won't have this problem. But because COVID got in the way, we had to kind of jerry-rig a better way in the interim.
Yeah, I mean, that's understandable. This is an extreme circumstance, It's interesting, like hearing lawmakers trying to make it easy to vote, because usually you're hearing on the news how they try and make it harder to vote, and throwing out mail-in ballots specifically this year too, And I don't want to point fingers, but it's not usually Democrats that are saying, throw out the mail-in ballots.
Yeah, no, totally. Republicans have been playing the voter fraud card for 20 years. They've been doing this ever since, really since Bush v. Gore. They've really accelerated this, and they've used that excuse to pass really horrendous voting restrictions across the country. And it's great because actually this election year, with all of these claims of fraud, they have used the same excuses that they've used for the last 20 years. They played the entire playbook this year in the last 15 weeks or so, and they have not been able to prove a single case. So this election actually debunked every one of their falsehoods, their lies, their myths, their whatever. So
I just don't get it. Like, even if you talk to somebody who's not political, really, like some of my friends, they don't care. They're not Republicans or Democrats, right? They really care about themselves. They want to make sure there's food on the table.
Right.
And you explain to them like what goes on, like in a general sense, like they make it harder to vote, or they try to make it harder to vote. And people say like, that's crazy. Like, why would they do that? Because at the end of the day, people are like, hey, all right, I'm not super politically active, but I want it to be easy for people to vote. Like, why would they make it hard to vote? Like, they still, that crosses people too, which is interesting. It's interesting what Republicans, I know I don't want to bash Republicans because I'm sure there are some good ones out there. I'm just kidding. There are, but like, I don't know how they do it. They do some voodoo on people that make them vote for them when they could give 2 shits about them. It's kind of sad, actually.
Yeah, no, it's, I'm learning this more and more. It's easy to manipulate. It's like really nefarious, but it's easy to manipulate the information that you give people, and that's how they judge what's going on, right?
Sure.
So like the Fox News example, right? Like people watch Fox News all the time and they think, oh my God, voter fraud left and right. And when you keep watching that over and over and over again, you internalize that message, even though there's no proof of it. So then when someone comes along and says, yeah, voter fraud, everyone is already primed to say, oh yeah, that makes sense. Voter fraud, not okay.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there's no proof for it.
Also, like, I think Republicans are good at boiling things down to a sentence or like 10 words or whatever,
Yeah.
Like they're really good at that. They figured it. I mean, I think Democrats are getting better at it, obviously, but I don't know. They're good at like stirring it up and like getting people up and crazy. So let me just so election day, you were down how many votes? Election night.
Election night, we were down. So at the end of election night, we were down like 6,600 votes,
Not a
6,400
small
votes.
number, right? For the
Not a small
district.
number, yeah, yeah. But actually, there were some votes which had been cast in person that did not show up on the machines for some reason. And so the following Saturday, the Board of Elections updated their numbers, and we actually were down 5,400 votes.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's
So
the
we
number
moved
I
up
saw. Yeah.
5,400 votes. So the total, and that's not counting any absentee ballots. So just all of the in-person votes, we were down
Right.
5,400.
I mean, we all, everyone was saying that most of the absentee stuff is going to be heavily Democrat.
Yeah.
Were you worried or you knew it? You kind of expected it? What?
Once we knew the total number of absentee ballots that there were, we felt very, very confident. Like
Okay.
we invested a lot of time and resources to recruiting absentee voters and making sure that they filled it out, but there's no guarantee that they're actually going to send it back. We probably spoke to about 35,000 people that we targeted for the absentee program alone.
Wow.
So it was a lot, and about a third of the total vote that we were expecting. On election night, there were only 13,000 absentee ballots that were returned, which had us a little bit spooked because that's a low number.
Right.
At the end of the whole thing, there ended up being about 21 or 22,000 absentee ballots. So once we knew that we had crossed like the 16 or 17,000 vote threshold, we felt very comfortable that it was only a matter of time.
All right, good. So it wasn't all doom and gloom and stuff because I saw the numbers and I'm like, there's got to be a ton of. I'm like, that's a big number, but there has to be a ton of absentee stuff still. Because I was glued to the TV, and you saw Florida come in quick because they allowed counting before.
Right.
Ohio counting before.
Georgia, all those places. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't allow that. We're going to be we're looking to change that now moving forward, for good reason. But
right.
Yeah, that was what made it so so much anxiety was just like waiting for that, waiting for those votes to come in, waiting for the ballots to come back, getting the final number of counts.
Mm-hmm.
But we ended up getting 75% of all the absentee ballots went our way.
So that's overwhelming.
Instead of 5,400, we ended up winning by 3,750.
All right. Yeah. Wow. So that's a big swing.
Yeah, big swing.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you need to make voting easier nationwide. I mean, I get like when there's more turnout, Republicans tend to lose. So maybe how about, changing your platform to like actually helping people so they vote for you when they all vote, crazy idea. I know, but how about giving that a run?
Just campaign for people's hearts and minds. Whatever, go out there and campaign on your message, whatever it is. But there's no reason why we should be discouraging people from participating. None at all. Completely agree.
I question COVID. How do you feel about the new COVID lockdown for restaurants, the restaurant specific? Like they were at 25% capacity indoors, and now it's 0. When you look at the contact tracing numbers, it's relatively small. I mean, I'm sure there's probably a little bit of a fluctuation in terms of the contact tracing. It's not ironclad, but it's like 1.5%.
Yeah.
It's nominal.
It's yes. I mean, it's obviously this whole shutdown is very, very upsetting. And I don't own a business. I can only imagine like you had a restaurant, right?
I'd be freaking out.
You'd be freaking out, right? And it's really hard, especially if you have a place that let's say doesn't do a lot of takeout. It's a fine dining establishment. Who's gonna order out a steak 4 nights a week, right? Or like a pork chop 4 nights a week, or anything like that. Yeah, it's really tough. Like I get it. I think the numbers are a little bit off. There is contract tracing in the hospitality industry is not that great. Contract tracing in general has not been that great. We have not done it properly. And so a lot of our contract tracing, the numbers are way off. When we were able to do outdoor dining or even some limited indoor dining, I can tell you like some of the places I went to, not every restaurant was writing down everyone's name and their phone number, right? Sure. So, look, we're not going around like ratting out places. Like, again, things are tough already. But I think that relying just on that 1.5% number is kind of misleading. We don't know what the full number is.
Right.
And the thing about the shutdown is that this is the one thing that we can control. Like, we can't control what people are doing in their living rooms, even though living room spread has been a big driver of this, because we're not going to send the police into your house.
No.
But we can limit your ability to congregate in certain places. And look, the restaurants or hospitalities were like number 4 on the list of things that were driving the spread, even if it was a smaller number. But we know that we can stop that part of it. And if we can stop that part of it, then we can start, tackling and convey the seriousness of how bad this is, and start breaking down those other numbers.
Well, the interesting thing is, to me, right, it sucks. Like, when I argue with my friends about it, right, I tell them, I'm like, there's no perfect solution, right? There's no like right or wrong, like complete right? Like, it's two bad options that you need to pick.
Yeah.
And, your job, number one, is to make sure, and all public servants, is to make sure less people die if you can avoid it. And like the whole COVID, like, pandemic, denying it, not as serious. I mean, just look at the numbers. It's bad. It's bad. Like, there's a reason why we're one of the worst, or the worst country in terms of deaths, in terms of, everything probably per capita, besides maybe like Brazil, but that guy Bolsonaro is a nightmare too. So, I don't understand. I know it's hard. Like, I know it's tough, and the federal government is doing what it can, right? And the PPP thing definitely got abused by people that didn't need it. This new one, the $600 one, and the more PPP, fine, give it to the people that are actually struggling. And I get like the whole targeted paying people, the direct payments and stuff like that, which I'm sure they are. Like, people make 75,000 or less are getting the money.
Yeah.
Because the Republicans' big, their big grudge about it was that 1%ers are going to get the money, which is absolute trash. Like, 1%ers are getting the money from the PPP loans, basically, because they have businesses that really kind of weren't affected.
Yeah.
And they're getting massive loans compared to, Joe Schmo coffee shop. They get 30 grand that probably lasted them, because it's a small restaurant. You don't have a ton of employees, that maybe lasted them 2 months, maybe. So for those small actual restaurants, they should cut to the front of the line first and foremost, do whatever you can. And the cash payments, it's just interesting how blatant they are. Like, I don't want to keep bashing Republicans, but they don't give a shit. They don't,
Yeah.
You got a guy who's 77, 78, Bernie, who's like yelling at people on New Year's Day and New Year's Eve about $2,000 payments. And then you got, what was the guy's name that came and was trying to debate Bernie about, people are going to get $2,000 payments that make $300,000 a year. And Bernie was like, what are you talking about? Like, it's less than 1% that are going to get that amount of money, given to them. It's people that are really struggling in a time where, once in 100-year pandemic, like, this is crazy. This is changing our lives, the way we go about living.
Yep.
So it's just interesting, like, how people just downplay it. And it's interesting, like, what side likes to downplay it. I don't know. It's crazy. Like, the conspiracy stuff is coming to the surface, like, more and more, and it's becoming more mainstream, and that's just scary to me.
The level of misinformation and willful ignorance that we live with right now it's really scary. It absolutely is. Yeah. I have a good friend of mine. He's a city councilman from Astoria, Costa Constantinides. He got COVID, and he's had it for like 6 months. He still hasn't recovered.
Wow.
How can you go around saying that this is a hoax when he literally, I spoke to him the other day, and he's much better than what he was, but he's dropped a lot of weight. He can't walk more than a couple blocks without getting winded. It really takes a toll on some people. It really has a negative consequence. Like, don't tell them I'm not saying this is fake.
Right.
People are still suffering from this. People are still dying from this. And yet, it all comes back to information sources. If the news that we watch plays it down, then we'll have no conception of what reality is anymore. And so we're less likely to think that it's actually a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting, and like, even when Fox News called the election for Biden, they have such cognitive dissonance where they were starting to attack Fox News, and they were only watching Fox News at night because, the opinion shows are at night where they get the big ratings, and the news shows, are actually kind of saying the real truth, like on Fox News where, Biden won basically. Like it's impossible for him to have lost, and like just the news. And you saw what happened with Newsmax and Fox News, like Dominion, that voting machine company, basically sent them a cease and desist and like, listen, we'll sue you, into oblivion if you don't retract certain things. And they came out and retracted stuff. But it's, the damage is done, obviously. Like it's out there.
Yep.
The fire's lit and there's no real way to like put it out.
Yeah, exactly.
When do you think we're back to semi-normal?
You mean in terms of like pandemic stuff?
Yeah.
I think by next fall.
Next fall.
Yeah. I think by next fall. I think, the vaccine rollout's been slow, so we're behind, in terms of how fast we should be progressing for, immunizations. I think once Biden takes the oath of office and if he's able to execute his 100-day plan, that'll help us catch up but not really jump ahead. By the time we have a critical mass of people who are vaccinated, it'll probably be the spring or late spring, early summer. So I think by the fall we could probably breathe easier.
Right.
That's still a long way off. Like, look at the history of other pandemics that we've gone through. It's not a one and done thing. Like it takes 2 years, 3 years until it kind of filters out and diffuses itself.
Mm-hmm.
So we should be thinking about this in terms of a long haul.
Yeah. I mean, I was saying like if the vaccine really did, if we did the right thing, it doesn't look like it as of yet, like summer, we'd be inoculated anyway to a point where it's like relative herd immunity and like it's relatively safe to open stuff up. But yeah, business wise, but the small businesses, not like stock market, because they've done better than anybody. Yeah, I would say probably next year, like late next year, until like they, people probably, small restaurants and stuff see the kind of money that they used to make. Totally. I got a couple of legislative questions, general.
Go for it.
When is marijuana going to be legalized in New York State recreationally?
It'll probably come up again this year. There's been a couple of holdouts. We came close to doing it last year. There's two competing visions of, what this could look like. First of all, take a step back. We're creating a brand new industry from scratch. It's not as simple as just like saying like legalize it, because we want to create and regulate it, which requires creating a whole industry. And there's been a strong desire to create a system so that people who have been most affected by marijuana prosecutions and the criminal justice system have a chance to then to capitalize on this new industry, and we can reinvest back in neighborhoods that have been more affected than others. And there's been a lot of dispute back and forth over how the best way to do that is. Right. I think, and the second thing is like the state is broke and we need the money. And so if we can make, if we start legalizing it or regulating it this year, maybe within 4 years, we can pull $400 million or $500 million of tax revenue off of it. Mm-hmm. It's a smart thing to consider doing. So hopefully we'll get our things together this year. We'll figure it out. But we've been blocked for the last couple of years because of these disagreements over how to best reinvest in communities. So
right. I mean, yeah, that's
maybe the crisis will help us jumpstart some of those negotiations.
Is it also like this is a question I wanted to ask about sports betting too, and poker or both or whatever? Yeah. Because there were bills and stuff like that in the legislature that never made it. I could see recreational marijuana being higher on the list, but sports betting can't be way off.
I actually think it's probably, my gut says that it's probably easier to do sports betting.
Really? Okay.
Because I think more people intuitively already know that it's happening and that people are already doing it. Like, look, lots of people smoke and, but I think there's still a stigma around some folks to like not fully recognize or acknowledge that a lot of people smoke. Whereas it's not like a surprise if someone's making a bet on their phone or they're like, whatever.
But you see the commercials.
They have a better chance of doing that this year.
All right. What about the barrier of entry? Is it just going to be like for big, FanDuel's, DraftKings, like the big casino companies, even the big weed companies, right? Like, are the licenses going to be $2 million licenses and stuff like that? Because I remember when medical marijuana was coming up and they were going to give out a certain amount of licenses, like 4 or something like that. The fee was $250,000. Like it wasn't super expensive, but it wasn't nothing either. You know what I mean? And like, compared to like a liquor license, which costs you, even with a lawyer, is going to cost you $10,000, let's say. Like it's attainable.
Right.
So
Yeah.
do you think like the barrier of entry is going to be super high for either?
I don't think it's going to be super high. Obviously we want to make money off of it. So if there's a chance to make money off of it because the state's broke, we will. But I don't think, especially with weed, I don't think the barriers are going to be too high because, again, you want to be able to invest that money back in communities. And one of the best ways to do that is to give people in those communities a chance to partake of the economic activity. So you can't put an impermissibly high barrier there. Gambling will probably be a slightly higher barrier to entry. Is my gut. But again, a lot of these things are still being like worked out, and there's a lot of negotiations and a lot of back and forth, and we haven't gotten it right so far, so it still is pretty tricky thing to try to like thread that needle perfectly.
Well, you got like Cuomo, and he says it in press conferences that he wants legalized marijuana. You know what I mean? Like, so for the governor to be saying it, it's on people's minds. Like, there's definitely, you got to be close to at least, getting there.
And I want sunshine and rainbows every day of the week, right? And just by saying it doesn't make it so, right? Like, everyone wants it, and everyone wants it their way.
Right.
And the good or the bad thing about like the political process, it's like making sausage, right? It's like that old adage, like if you ever want to, you don't want to see how laws made, don't watch how they make sausage, right? Like, it gets really messy, and it gets a lot of compromise and a lot of like, this, I want my view, you want your view. We both want the same thing, but in different ways.
And listen, you have the special interests,
special
interest, the unions, I'm sure DraftKings and FanDuel, probably donate a ton of money to state stuff, so they want the barrier of entry specifically for sports betting to be a little bit higher so they have less competition, right? They don't want like, Jimbo's betting shop on the corner that's an independently run place. They want to be able to be the beneficiaries of this thing.
Totally.
I can understand. I like that the marijuana thing, it's a lower one. It's maybe similar, a little bit higher than liquor to start. Because like you could, it's as long as you're not a criminal, you can get a liquor license, more or less. It's relatively pretty simple. It's not that difficult. And it's a relatively quick process too. Even if you expedite it, it's 3 months and you have a liquor license. So, I mean, it's relatively easy. I'm not saying anything the city or state does is super easy, but, it's not brutal.
Yeah.
What do you think's going to happen with the deficit? Are we going to get bailed out by Biden?
God, I hope so, because if not, we're in trouble. New York State right now, we're projecting it was $64 billion deficit over 4 years. Now it's looking more like 50 and change. It's still a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's a lot of, over 4 years, that's a lot of money.
And before it was balanced?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's bad. That's pretty bad.
Yeah. So figure that's like what, 12 billion a year.
Mm-hmm.
We have a very high. New York State's budget is like one of like the 7th or 8th largest economy in the world. Like we have a very high budget. We pay for a lot of things. We do a lot. We invest in a lot of things. Cutting $12 billion of that would be catastrophic.
Yeah, it's like brutal.
In one shot, that would be brutal.
Yeah, you can't just
funding, hospital funding, like you name it, all out the window.
Yeah, I feel like Biden's going to be receptive to state, helping states out. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, New York State does, we put in a ton of federal money, right? Like, so when our backs are against the wall, like, hey, cough it up, dude. You know what I mean? Like,
just step up, exactly. And only the federal government can bail us out. It's not like we can print our own money in New York State to be able to, like, pay our bills. We need
you can't sell treasury bonds, New York State treasury bonds. Unfortunately, I mean, I guess it would be easier, but who knows? Like, they probably be printing that like they print out money in DC, like in the Federal Reserve. I want to ask you this: what's the story with Cuomo and Diblasio? Why do they hate each other so much? Why can't they get even on the same page in terms of COVID numbers? Because like the city COVID numbers are different than the state COVID numbers. What's the issue there? Also, like in the beginning too, they were doing like dueling press conferences and stuff. Now it's kind of similar too because it is popping a lot more. So, Diblasio loves to run his mouth. He just sits there and bloviates, and he's got like the charm of like a folding chair. To be completely honest,
like I've never heard that expression.
What's the beef there? Like, what's the issue?
So I'll take the numbers first. The reason why the numbers are different is because they're calculating them at different times.
Okay.
The state calculates them based on the number of confirmed tests relative to the testing population, and they test, they pull the numbers at a certain time of the day. The city does it, calculates it a little bit differently, so the numbers tend to be a little bit higher, and they report them at different times of the day, so that's why there's also a deviation. I wish they can get their act together and like agree on a same set of definitions, but look, here we are, nothing new. I think the reason why they don't get along, look, politics has a lot of egos.
Yeah.
You're the mayor of New York City. You probably have the second hardest job in the country after being president, because it's like the most thankless job. Everyone's bitching and moaning at you because the garbage didn't get picked up by 10 o'clock or this or that or like whatever, right? Like, it's really tough. So it takes someone with a big, healthy ego, and this is for any mayor, to be able to say, like, I can do this job and I can hold that power. Governor of New York is also a really powerful position, also a lot of ego. And so you have two positions that are naturally drawn to have people who have, think highly of themselves. And I think in both Bill de Blasio and Andrew Cuomo, they think very highly of themselves.
Yeah.
And so it's like a macho man thing. And I'm not saying that as a fault. I mean, I think we suffer from it in a lot of ways because they can't get their act together. But that's just the way politics is. And like, who can be the bigger man? Who can be the bigger macho man? That's what it comes down to.
Sure. Even same parties, right? Because they are both Dems. It's so interesting to me because you would think like, okay, maybe, normal stuff, fine. They beef about stuff. It's what it is, But like with the pandemic, you would think like, hey, let's have a conference call and figure out, okay, these are the numbers that everyone sticks to, et cetera. You know what I mean? Like, let's make it as easy as possible for people to understand what's going on here.
That sounds so simple. And
I know. It's
just
crazy.
not. It's ego, right? Like, it's all it is.
Yeah, Cuomo seemed, I know you can't say anything, but Cuomo, listen, I respect what he's done. He's kind of like stepped up when there was a vacuum for leadership, basically, because there was no like real federal response.
Yeah.
So he did get, the shine for that. And like, you have to respect it because he was out there doing briefings when like people were snapping out, freaking out, and he's there taking it and like leading. So you got to respect it, but you could tell he's like a nightmare.
Look, he's a very strong-willed person, but arguably you need someone who's strong-willed and thick-headed to be able to get things done, right? Like, this isn't, summer camp or like, whatever. Like, this is real work, and it's really hard, even when you're at your best, to be able to get something done. So you need people who, are going to be like a bull in a china shop to be able to force their way onto things. Otherwise, nothing ever happens.
Yeah, I believe it for sure. Try to get through like the drudgery of like the state legislature. Like, I'm sure there are unions and special interests that have enormous power. You know what I mean? That you have to navigate and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like, you need somebody who's kind of like a maniac, I guess.
It's like trying to like corral and herd 213 cats.
Yeah.
Right? Like the 213 members of the legislature. Like, that's what it's like. You have to, how do you get something done when everyone has an opinion? Everyone has the answer to every question. Everyone has thoughts. Everyone has an idea. We all got to work together somehow and keep the state running. And like, it's not easy.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, it sounds, and you know what's funny? It's like a super majority Democrat. You would think it'd be easier to get that kind of stuff done.
But what might be in my district's best interest might not be in the best interest of a Democrat next door.
Totally.
Like, everyone's got a different perspective on things.
How do you manage dealing with the we're Greek, right? So we're more traditional for sure. Our parents are, for some to a point. How do you deal with those like hard-headed Greek, old school Greek guys who just come to like, do they complain to you and stuff like that? Do they give you like, that Greek attitude kind of?
Mm-hmm. I get some of that, but I get that from people who aren't Greek as well, right? And so my view is like, I'll listen to anyone, I'll talk to anyone, I'll let them make their case, I'll explain to them my thinking and my rationale for things. Sometimes we'll agree, sometimes we'll disagree, but at the end of the day, I have to make a decision to represent, the best interests of the entire group of people that I represent, which is a lot.
Right.
And, the Greek community here is, we maybe have 5,000 or 6,000 people in a district of 325,000.
Yeah.
I can't represent this entire community.
No, they think they're 5,000 out of 5,000. Like they think, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So that I listen to everyone. I try to talk to everyone. I know that I'm not going to agree. I don't agree with myself all the time. Like I'm not going to expect everyone, every, older generation Greek person from the church to agree with everything I do either. Like it just,
right.
You have to be willing to accept that. And then the trick is, like, once you accept that, how do you navigate it?
I feel like you're doing the right thing. You're navigating it the right way, right? Like you hear them out, you hear their piece, whatever. Even if they're not making fucking sense, you're going to sit there and you're going to explain what your thinking is.
Yeah. And look, they're not always wrong either. Like sometimes they're right and I agree with them, but maybe maybe I can't get enough support from my colleagues to do what they want, right? Or maybe there's just not enough votes there. So yeah, you have to try to play, there's like, you can be in politics and do it all for show. And you can be out there and like pound your fist and pound the table just to make noise every single time someone's upset. But nothing ever comes, very little comes from that in my experience. Or you can try to work the system and get things done. Sometimes that takes a little bit longer, but you actually accomplish something. But that means that people aren't always going to be happy when things aren't happening when they want it or as they want it. So you kind of have to bring them along with you and show them how you're trying and how you're working and how you're listening. And, it's not always easy.
I mean, if somebody comes to you in good faith, I feel like when you explain to them your thought process and like what the situation really, the nuances of it, if they're there in good faith, they'll understand that. I feel like, you know what I mean? Like you're not a fucking prince or whatever. You know what I mean? You can't just be like, I want this and this is what's going to happen for my district.
Yeah.
What's the biggest thing? Speed cameras?
I'm sorry?
What's the biggest thing? Speed cameras?
Speed cameras. I get a lot of speed camera stuff. Actually, look, a lot of people in our community, they own property and they're upset. Like we just passed an eviction moratorium last week until May, and a lot of people were upset with that, and I understand why they're upset with it. But like the flip side is we have a public health crisis, and we could be throwing people out of their houses, in the middle of a pandemic, and maybe they are not the ones that are going to be evicting people. But we know that other landlords are, and we can't write a law that says only landlords that are planning to evict someone can't do it. You have to make a law for everyone. And so that's where, like, you explain to people, you say, look, I understand that this is hard, but here's my thinking, here's the rationale, and that's it. Like you can't make everyone happy all the time. Yeah.
No, I mean, listen, being straight up like that is good. I feel like people need that from politicians. They don't need the turn, like the walk around, like they don't need the pivot. They need even if it's fucked up news, even if it's bad news, they need the bad news.
Look, I'm a terrible poker player. I don't play at all. Like I play my cards face up all the time, right? Like, I'll just tell you what it is. I'll tell you what I think. I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'll tell you why I'm doing it. Agree, disagree. Like this is it. Like that's right. And we can discuss, we can debate, we can work on. At the end of the day, I'm not trying to pull one over on people because what good does that do? Right? Like you just got to be honest, and because there'll come a time where I will be able to do something, or I'll agree with them and say, look, I can try to help you this way, or this way. You have to build a relationship with folks, so they can trust you one way or the other, right?
Totally. No, I mean, definitely don't lose that. Have you become less idealistic since you got elected? Once you get into like the sauce and you see how corrupt it is, because let's be honest, it's corrupt.
I don't think I'm less idealistic, but I think there's a difference between idealism and like naivety. And I don't think I was naive before in terms of how hard the job was, but the job is a lot harder than I ever thought it would be.
Right.
And doesn't mean that I lost my idealism, because I'm still passionate about the job, but it's a lot harder and I worked in government for 14, 15 years at all levels, in DC, New York, everywhere. And like, I know it was hard, but once you're in the seat and you're behind that desk, it's 10 times harder. So that's where I think I've been trying to grow and do better, because it's not easy. If you're doing it the way it's supposed to be done, it's not supposed to be easy.
Totally. Right. Yeah. I mean, that makes, telling people the truth, right? You're going to get blowback.
Yeah.
Political blowback too.
Agree with them. Like, it's like, it's not easy to pass a bill. It's not easy to like really make change. You have to really work at it because everyone's going to find every reason to slow you down or stop you or come up with an excuse or this or that. Like you got to really work hard to overcome all of that stuff.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a tough job. It doesn't sound, and like, unless you're one of those, you're in a safe district and, you don't really do much kind of people, you seem like, you want to do shit. You want to actually get things done, which is unfortunately a rarity. Not a rarity, but it's a quality that more should possess, I guess, in your position.
Yeah, no, look, I want to keep doing this as long as it's still fun, as long as I feel like I can still do something positive with it. And so far, I feel like it's been working out. So I definitely love the work, but it's definitely a challenge.
Well, I know you just got reelected, so you're not really thinking about like your future and what's next and stuff like that. But what are you thinking? Like, if you didn't get reelected, would you have run for mayor or Brooklyn Borough president?
No, I probably would have, figured something out and taken some time off and like, reset a bit to, plan my next move. I don't know. Like, I don't need to be in elected office to feel like I'm doing something meaningful or to contribute something. I feel like I can do this job really well and actually do contribute something, but I don't need to be doing this. So I would have figured something else out. I have my law degree. I can go back to practicing law. I could go work in government somewhere else. I could do who knows what.
Right. Like you would work on a staff or.
Yeah, I could have gone like staff. Who knows? Like, but I didn't plan my career to like, 2 years at this office, 1 year here, run for this. Then like, if you play that game, you're gonna get so caught up trying to keep all your steps straight that you're not gonna actually have time to do anything worthwhile. So. Right. It doesn't appeal to me.
So you still are pretty idealistic, it sounds like, dude. That's good.
Yeah, I think so.
I feel like most senators, like most state senators and even assembly, whatever, people in the business, they're pretty jaded for sure. Like they're always looking for the next rung up on the ladder and stuff like that.
Yeah, look, obviously if there's ever an opportunity to do something bigger or better, I'd love to consider that, but I don't spend my days thinking about that because it's not worth it. Honestly, like I could walk away from the job and still feel satisfied with my life. And I think that's an important distinction to make. Like I give my life to this job and I do it all the time. But at the end of the day, if I lost, like it wouldn't have been the end of me.
Sure.
I still would have been Andrew and I still would have had my family and my life and, whatever. And so as long as you keep that in perspective, then like you can't make a wrong choice, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you got the work-life balance thing figured out, even though you'd probably do spend a lot of time working and stuff like that. It's not your be-all, end-all.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Fair play, man. Who do you like for mayor?
Oh, God. There's like 32 candidates.
Endorse somebody, bro. Come on. Let's make news.
I probably will be. I like a bunch of the candidates.
Some you used to work
with.
Right.
I used to work with Eric Adams for 5 years as the Brooklyn Borough president. I like Eric a lot. I think the city needs a lot of help. And so I'm still looking to see which candidate has the best vision for the city because the city is in a tough spot. And I think the city needs a lot to recover from. And, not one candidate has everything I'm looking for yet. So I'm going to take some time to really figure that out. Give me some more thought.
I mean, there's some good ones, Eric. I like Eric Adams too. He seems like a down-to-earth guy.
Yeah.
Former cop. I think he could do a lot to like kind of mend shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's African American. He's a former cop. I think that could be good. I like Max Rose. Stringer puts me to sleep. Like doesn't do anything for me. Yang Gang, I love Yang, but I mean, he is a little not radical. I don't want to say radical. He's definitely out there a little bit with like UBI and different things like that. He's got a business background, which it wouldn't be a bad thing.
Yeah.
There's some decent ones, but my real true love is Katsimatidis. He's my number one.
Who knows? He said before he wanted to run. We'll see if he pulls the trigger.
No, I know. No, he's not. No, I mean, I'm not going to vote for him.
Yeah, no, neither am I. Look, I think, to be mayor, you have to be able to run the city. Like the mayor of New York is not like I said before, it's not a glamorous position. It's all about nuts and bolts. You have to really love the nuts and bolts. You have to really care that the garbage gets picked up.
Yeah.
And that it gets picked up everywhere. Like you can't just like pick and choose who you're going to pick the garbage up for, which neighborhoods or which boroughs or which types of people. You got to do it for everyone, even if, as you recognize that some people need more help than others and some people need a leg up more than others. You can't ignore the rest of the city because of that.
Right.
And like, garbage, graffiti, like all that stuff, all the little things do matter to folks, and
Definitely.
that's how you create a livable city. You want people to feel like they're living in a place that they want to live in.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever can capture that energy and really sell it in a way that's exciting, I think is gonna probably have the best chance.
I like Max Rose. I'm not mad at him at all. I think he's, to be able to win in that district where he was at, as a Democrat, that's, trying to point, it's like needle thread kind of stuff. So, and he lost, but I don't think he ended up losing by a lot. I mean, I don't know what he lost.
4 points.
Yeah, I mean, it's not crazy. And it is Staten Island. Malliotakis, she went full, she went full Trumper or whatever. And I get it. And he, and Max Rose, you respect him, with the BLM, with, defund the police, all that. He did, tap dance on a razor blade. You know what I mean? He did kind of do the impossible. That kind of hurt him too. It hurt him at the end of the day, unfortunately, in that district, even though he was right for the most part,
Yeah.
It's a nuanced situation. There's no right way or wrong way. You can't defund the police. You can't abolish the police. Like, we live in the real world here.
Yeah.
You know, if anything, they need more money for training and stuff like that. Navy SEALs get trained, 20% of thethe time they're being trained. Like, why can't cops be trained 20% of the time in de-escalation? It's going to sound radical, but what we did in Iraq and Afghanistan with counterinsurgency? Not saying that the people that live in the city are insurgents, but the whole thing about counterinsurgency was hearts and minds.
Yeah.
That should be what the police does here. Try to get after hearts and minds, because we're actually all fucking neighbors, if you think about it. You know what I mean? We go to the same delis, we go to the same places, we ride the same subway. The hearts and minds thing would work better in our actual country than it would 7,000 miles away from me in the mountains of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So
that's exactly right. I think I forget which country it is. It's like one of the Northern European countries. Their police training is like 2 years.
Oh wow.
Ours is like 6 months.
Right.
Less than that. So that's a great example. Like, training actually works, and that if we invest in training, then there won't be as much of a need for expense down the road, because you're actually putting all the money in up front. You have high quality trained safety force to kind of help win those hearts and minds of folks while helping to keep the city safe. Yeah. I
remember when I had Bonnie's down in Park Slope, 72nd precinct, they had like community officers and stuff that would walk the beat, which is a good thing. I feel like Park Slope doesn't really need that. It's more of an affluent place. Like, maybe go down to Brownsville or East New York and stuff like that. Do it there, where the majority of those residents think the cops are out to get them. And it's understandable, right? You're more. I'm not as scared when I get pulled over.
Yeah.
I have my PBA card. I can, smooth, talk my way out of it if I need to. I'm not really worried about a cop shooting me or arresting me for no reason.
Yeah.
When black people are, and that's a thing that needs to be addressed and fixed. Like, the numbers are there, I like numbers. If the numbers weren't there, like the percentage wise.
Yeah.
Then okay, there's no argument, but then they're there. It's an obvious argument. And that's not to say that if you're going out to a Black Lives Matter protest and you're protesting, great, you should be able to protest. This is America. You start looting and breaking shit, you're going to jail. Like, that's it. Simple. It shouldn't be this difficult.
Yeah, you know what? That's in the age that we're living in, there's no room for nuance or for explanation. And if it can't fit in 280 characters, like, what you just said does not fit in one tweet.
Right.
So then it doesn't matter, right? And that's part of on both sides, like on both sides of the coin. That's the problem. Like, we're not living in a world where we can actually have this nuance and be able to say you can protest and protest safely. You can live, that's we got to fix that.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. I mean, it's America, dude. Like, you got a problem, you should be able to voice your opinion. Not be violent, obviously, because if you're going to be violent, you're just going to go to jail. Yeah. And you shouldn't be worried about getting clipped at a traffic stop if you're a certain color.
Yeah.
And I think that's just learning. Education makes the world go round, right? Like you watch the West Wing, right? Like
Totally, yeah.
that guy Jed Bartlett says, education is a silver bullet. It doesn't have to be like real college education. Just always educate yourself. You know, and by training cops to do the right thing, it's only going to be better because the cop goes home at night, right? It's a person who's doing the job because it's a good salary and it's good benefits, right? And you get a pension after 20 years. That's why they're doing the job.
Yeah.
Right? It's a job. They're human beings.
Yeah,
so, like,
exactly.
I think
you can't divorce the human being from the actual job itself. Right.
Okay. So what do we learn here, Andrew? You're endorsing Eric Adams.
I haven't made any endorsements yet, but we are gonna hold off. But I think we learned that look, we need people who care about making things better in the world, and that doesn't mean just elected office, right? Like we need more people who actually take the time to like figure shit out, like we were just talking about, to understand how things work and how things don't work, and actually care about fixing things. Because otherwise, it's like we're sheep being led to the slaughter.
Right.
Like people should care, and that's my big takeaway. Not enough people care.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely true. You could see people are more, they're out for themselves, and that's okay. At the end of the day, sure, you're number one in your own mind, but have a little bit of compassion and empathy. I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, you're right. We're all neighbors. That's what you said before. We're all neighbors. Can't forget that.
My last thing is, what about AOC? You hate her? Love her?
Look, I think she's. I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I think she articulates a message really good. She's a very skilled political communicator. She has a pretty strong and compelling message. She's tapping into an energy that exists in this country. People who feel left behind. Do I agree with every one of her positions? Absolutely not. Do I disagree with every one of her positions? Absolutely not. She's really good at her job. Good for her.
Yeah.
She should be able to articulate her view on behalf of everyone that supports her. We need to hear that perspective from people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I agree. I almost agree completely with you. I mean, are you into Medicare for all? Like, what do you think about
I support. So in New York, we've been trying to pass what's called the New York Health Act, which is basically a state version of that, and I support that. Yeah.
How's it in Senate? Is it like
we have I think like 30 co-sponsors so far. It's complicated because like it's a lot easier to do this at the federal level than the state level, so it's really really complicated. And right now, like, it's also going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And we got to figure out, how we can realign our entire state budget to be able to accomplish this.
Pre-COVID, when the budget was balanced and stuff like that, was it doable?
It needed a lot of work.
All right. So you're not a heartless politician. It's good.
Yeah. Like people have, you have a lot of city and state workers who already have health benefits given to them by the state. You'd have to cancel all of that and put them onto a new, Medicare for all program for New York State. That's not easy to do because these are contracts that are constitutionally protected by New York State's constitution. We have a history in New York State through the Medicaid program, which we pay for, of underpaying doctors for procedures. And so more and more doctors have stopped accepting Medicaid in New York because they've been underpaid. And they've actually filed lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit to fix it. And only after being sued does the state change their ways. So like, we don't have a good track record here in New York of actually paying for healthcare properly. Yeah. So I don't want to just all of a sudden snap our fingers. Everyone now has state health insurance. It's great, when we have to get our shit together and do it right. Yeah. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done to fix it before we can move ahead with it.
And I didn't even think about like that, where like, the state and city employees would have to, amend their contracts, so you have unions on one side who respect, they will look out for their members and stuff as they should. And then you have insurance companies and these big healthcare groups and stuff like that. So you're talking trying to, the pinhole is tiny. You know what I'm saying? Like you're trying to thread the needle big time there.
Yeah. No, it's tough. It's very, very tough.
I mean, I'm sure you could probably shame enough people to do the right thing. Hopefully.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. You know what? It's one of those things where there's so much work involved in getting it right. And there's only so much bandwidth that people have at a given time to work on a given issue, with so many things swirling around us, that it's hard to get everyone on the page all at once, answer all of the questions, figure it all out, and then get it done right away. Like it's like, Magic, lightning's got to strike 3 times to have that happen, and that's just, it takes a lot of work.
I mean, listen, man, I'm not even blowing smoke. Like, I'm glad you're doing something. Somebody who's approachable, somebody who like will sit and talk to you. Like, sure, we know each other or whatever, but I'm sure any constituent that comes up to you, you'll sit and chat it up with them if they have a concern or whatever. It's good. We need more people like you doing this.
No, thanks. I like doing it, and I want to keep doing it. So
Gounardes for president when 2040? 2032? When are you thinking?
32. I mean, president of what? The Fort Hamilton Alumni Association.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
Let's start with that and see how that goes first.
I think that's it. What else you got? You got anything you want to say?
What else do I got? I told you I'm expecting a baby next week.
I don't know. I don't want to mention it. I don't want to I don't know if it was. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. So that also will help keep me grounded, I think, in terms of what matters and what doesn't matter and what's important. So I'm really excited. My wife and I are very excited about that. So we're happy about that, and can't wait for that to happen. It's a blessing. So between that and and the job and trying to dig us out of this hole that we're in, I got my hands full.
Hell yeah, man. I'm glad you're doing it, dude. Honestly, I'm glad you won and stuff like that.
Thank you.
I feel like I do know you, but I think people should feel, they shouldn't be worried about like their representative screwing them over, at least in the state Senate, not the real Senate. They're scumbags.
Yeah, or just some of them. Just those that sound like Mitch McConnell.
Don't even get me. I made a video about Mitch McConnell. I fucking hate that guy. He's evil. He's pure evil.
Totally.
I didn't think somebody was worse than Trump, but Mitch McConnell is getting there. He's close.
Yeah. Well, I think he is worse because he actually has the power to make or break things.
And nobody knows him. You know what I'm saying? He's not an orange reality star that everybody knows.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully Georgia, goes blue. I mean, I don't know if they're going to win both, but
2 days, 3 days, we'll find out.
Yeah. And they see these ads that they're playing on Fox News and Newsmax, like the Trump impersonator saying not to vote and stuff like that.
Yeah, crazy.
Hopefully they don't.
Yeah. Isn't that scary that people actually will fall for that?
Insane. Dude, I see people on Instagram that they get their red, white, and blue bulletproof vests and they're going to march on Washington in January 6th. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah. And these are, like you said before, about these are people who went to law school and are lawyers and are relatively educated. You need logic, right? To go to law school.
Yeah.
And
no logic.
They're devoid of it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're screwed. Keep trying. Keep fighting hard, dude.
Thanks.
So Eric Adams for mayor is what you're saying?
Give him a shot.
Andrew, thanks, dude. I appreciate it.
Dude. Good talking to you. Thanks a lot.
Talk to you later.
Yep, got it.
Bye. What a gangster. Fun interview.